did you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today I'm going to be showing you the update to the Magicka from the previous patches. It's been around for quite some time now for the off-balance Magicka Templar. Now this build is focused around DPS, but it's also focused around supplying extra damage to your group and of course to yourself as far as DPS is concerned in the form of off-balance. Very similar to that of the Easy Sork, a lot of the damage is based around getting those procs in, although when they are up, it's very high. So I'm going to go over the stats and everything first of all, just to show you what we're looking at on the main stat screen, although some of this is actually hidden. 42k max Magicka, 16.8k max health, 2.2, that's incorrect. Let's buff that up. 3.2k max spell damage, 55% crit. That actually goes to 56, almost 57 if you gold out all the gear, but not all of it is gold, unfortunately. Although it is all divines. We're using 64 points into Magicka and the Thief Munderstone, and of course Vampire at stage 4. Now, recovery is quite high as well, 930, so it's not too bad. Now, that's with a potion, of course. The damage and the way it's applied and how it all works and the alternate setups and all the rest of it I will go over, so bear with me for those. But first of all, we're going to go over the skills. Okay, firstly we have Shock Clench, which is in the Destro skill line, in case that's confusing. Third one down, Destructive Clench, but if you have a lightning staff on, it's called Shock Clench, so that's why it's changed. But it's the third one down, morph it to this, you'll be fine. This does a decent damage over time. Lightning effect, which lasts 8 seconds. It stuns a target, it does a little bit of AoE damage to everyone close by, and above all, this has a very high status chance for concussion. Now, concussion, overlapping itself on top of another concussion, creates off balance, which does two things. If you have 75 points into Thermitage, which I'm going to get to, you increase all of your damage by 10% while that off balance debuff or negative effect as such has been applied while it's active. Also at the same time, all of your heavy attacks are increased by 70% if something is off balance, whether you have Thermitage or not. So just bear that in mind. It's about buffing as much concussion to turn it into off balance as possible. So this contributes to that. Plus it's quite a strong ability anyway. Lasts a decent amount of time too. Rearming Trap. This is a morph of Beast Trap. It's in the Fighters Guild skill line, and basically you put it on the floor like this and it will pop underneath the target and stun it. Now, some bosses can't be stunned, do not worry. It doesn't have to stun the target, it just has to activate. This target over here, for example, watch, pop. Now that will give you 10% increased critical damage. Not crit chance, crit damage. So if you do crit, it's stronger. Now watch, it rearms. So you only have to cast it once every 12 seconds. It lasts for 6, but it will apply twice. Very strong and stays up inside your rotation pretty much all the time. Now, this is of course very important to keep uptime on it, but ignore the physical damage. It does do physical damage, but this is not what you benefit from. You benefit from minor force, which is right there. Jesus Beam, as most people know this as. This is in this tree here. Final ability morphed into Radiant Glory. Now you can change it into Radiant Oppression, I believe it is. It starts off as Radiant Destruction. Basically, that morph of it does more damage based on how much Magicka you have left in your bar. So if you have a lot of Magicka, you probably won't have, but if you do, it does a bit more damage. Up to 20% based on how much you got left. But this morph on executes is safer. This does a little less damage, but this heals you for 20% of the damage done. Now, it's applied like this. There's your beam. Oop, there's a tree in the way. Now it looks like it's quite low because the target's health is too high. This is your execute. This basically, the lower the enemy's health, the stronger it gets. Now you can use this from 50% or lower, but I highly wouldn't recommend doing that. If it's inside a trial or dungeon situation and it's ads or general trash mobs or enemies, you can probably hit this around 40% health as long as your rotation's clean and you'll be fine. But on bosses, I wouldn't apply this any higher than 30%. So 30 and below I would start using this at. But it's very powerful. Puncture and Sweeps, this is your main spammable. Of course, this will be the main focus on your front bar rotation. It does a decent amount of damage every single stab, which is 4 stabs, I think. Hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. 4 stabs. And it does more damage to the main target in front of you. So it hits all targets, but the one that's closest to you, the one directly in front of you, will get hit for 140% extra damage on top of that. It snares them as well, but that's not important. What's important is the damage. What also is important to note is that this will heal you for 35% of the damage done. So if you're in a bunch of enemies, not only will it hit them all, each hit will heal you. So if you hit 4 enemies, you're getting 4 heals. It's really, really powerful, and it's very simple. When it hits, it heals you. Very, very strong. In a light, we use this on our bar for one reason, or 2 reasons in fact. Max Magicka and crit, which we keep on us all the time. Plus, when I get to the major skilled passives, you'll see that this is also further beneficial from some of those passives. But keep this on your bar at all times for the extra Max Magicka and the extra crit chance. Major Prophecy, in fact, which is also on our potions, but if your potions run out or you don't have medicinal use, you need to keep this on there. Ice Comet, I don't usually use this unless it's a bit of an oh shit button and the boss is almost dead and I don't have enough for the back bar ultimate, but I use this primarily for the passives that are also in the Mages Guild, which I will get to shortly, but in the shortest way possible to explain it. These two here give you 2% resources and recovery each for being on your bar, but we'll get to that. Back bar, Harness Magicka. This is the light armor shield morphed into Harness Magicka. It will shield you like this on your bar. You can see the purple color there. That's how much damage you can take before it disappears. Lasts 6 seconds, and if you take Magicka damage, it will absorb it and give you Magicka back. Very, very strong, and of course the more light armor you wear, the more Magicka gets restored. So you can use this as a resource gain in certain situations where it's quite strenuous. You have to shield up, and it's Magicka damage you're taking, you get stuff back. Blockade of Storms. This is confusing for some people, but in the Destruction Stuff skill line you'll have what's called Wall of Elements, and when you morph it, it's called Elemental Blockade. That will be called something different depending on what type of staff you're using. We're using 2 lightning staves, so whichever bar this is on will always be called Blockade of Storms. If it's fire, it'll be Blockade of Fire, and so on. This is very important. Also, it does mention in here what it does damage over time for the whole time that it's active, 8 seconds in fact, in that area of effect, all the way to here. Anything caught in here will take that damage. Just over 2k a second. However, any target inside this area that receives a concussion status effect becomes off balance. So, where I was talking earlier about lightning status effects, basically a chance from lightning damage to turn a debuff onto the enemy called concussion, if you put this down on them while that's active, they are guaranteed to go off balance. It's really important. This must be on the target all the time. It's a crucial skill to the build. Also very good DPS overall. Vampire's Bane, this is very simple. It's a single target damage over time ability. Starts off here. First ability you get in this skill line, and it does fire damage over 11.7 seconds and also grants you Major Prophecy. Now we already have Major Prophecy anyway, so don't panic, but if you weren't using Mage's Light then you could use this in the meantime. But you must keep this on a target all times as well because it's very, very powerful. Plus it does fire damage, which is quite important to an alternate part of this setup. In a light, again, just the same as this one, but we backbar it as well, so we get the Max Magicka on both bars. Oops, wrong one. And we also get the benefit from the Mages Guild passive, which I mentioned, 2% recovery and max magic. I will show you those. Blazing Spear, this is crucial. This is fired as so. Area of effect damage for 8 seconds. Also, one of your friendly teammates can synergize it, restoring 3960 Magicka or stamina, whichever one of the two is higher. So if it's a stam guy, they can take this, they get stamina back. If it's a magic guy, they can take this and get magic back. Very, very powerful, not just for damage, but to also help your team keep up resources. Also, there's a passive that's very important to this spear and puncture and sweeps as well, which I will get to in a moment. Finally, Thunderous Rage. This confuses people also. starts off as a different morph to this, but there's two basically when you morph this. There's Rage and there's Storm. Rage, you place it. Storm sticks to you. You don't want that one in PvE. You want to be able to fire it at the target in case you are specifically ranged. In PvP, however, primarily most people tend to pick Storms because you can run with it, it sticks to you, anyone close to you basically dies, although it is weaker. This is the one you want for PvE. Now, of course, with it being lightning damage, this will actually have 2 extra seconds on it. So instead of 7 seconds, it has 9. But it's called Thunderous Rage because we're using a lightning staff. If it's got another staff on it, it'll be called something else. But this is the ability you want. Now, passives. These are really important. Really, really important. First of all, get every single one of these. You're going to need them. This increases your weapon damage, but that's not important to us. However, the spell resistance is. Burning Light. When you deal damage with an Adric Spear ability, you have 25% chance to deal an additional 1.4k physical damage, which is rubbish for us because we don't do physical, or 4.4, almost 4.5k Magicka damage, whichever is higher. Of course, Magicka is higher for us, so that's the one we get. And this can occur once every 0.5 of a second. Now this, it can happen from that ability. So while you're stabbing something, that damage bonus can apply once every half a second to that ability. Also, another ability that applies to this, because it's an Adric Spear ability, is this. That ability can also work every half a second. Now, they don't overwrite each other, but if this one fires, and this one's already active as well, this could fire once, and then the next half a second, the spear could fire afterwards. They can stack on top, as long as they are within half a second of each other. So if this ticks every 2 seconds, is it? Let me double check this. Yeah, this will be every 1 second. So every 1 second, this has 2 chances to proc. And this lasts 1.1 seconds, so this has 2 chances to proc. You see where I'm going with this. They can do a lot of damage, but it's within 0.5 seconds of each other. So this one over 8 seconds could proc 16 times. This one could proc twice. You see what I mean? But not both at the same time, one or the other. So there's your free damage from your passives. Also, this increases your crit damage done and your damage against blocking targets by 10%. So we have a passive 10% increased crit damage just for having this on our bar and for having this on our other bar. So as long as you've got an Adric Spear ability on each bar, if they're active, you'll get the extra damage, and if they're just slotted, you will do 10% extra crit damage across the board no matter what. Really, really important. These are also important. They're class passives, so you need to get them anyway. This will improve the duration of our Jesus Beam and our Vampire's Bane. This will improve our ulti regen because we can get 3 ulti once every 6 seconds for using one of these skill line abilities, which is this one or this one we're using at the moment, Vampire's Bane or Radiant Glory. We also, when casting one of these abilities, you gain 5% increased spell damage for 20 seconds for you and your group, and also reduces the maximum cost of anything that is Magicka Stamina or Ultimate. So the Beast Trap for us is cheaper even though it's not in our skill lines because we get a reduction to cost. All of these get a reduction to cost, and so does the Ultimate. Restoring Light. These are actually very important as such for the class, but I don't use a lot of the passives. This increases the healing effects of your Restoring Light abilities. I'm not actually using any. This, while standing in the abilities, gives you an increased amount of healing, which again I'm not using any anyway. This again affects those abilities, I'm not using any. And again, this is actually quite important, increases your resurrection speed. So if someone dies, you can pick them up really fast. Resurrected allies return with 100% more health, so it's important that you pick people up because you're quick at it and you give them more resources back when you get up, for their health that is, and also gives you a 50-50 chance to fill an empty soul gem after you resurrect someone. So you may have used a soul gem, but you get it back. You have a chance to do that. Destro Staff, very important, get every single one of these. This, because we're using shock damage, if we do a heavy attack, we increase our splash damage to nearby targets by 129% of the damage done. So the target we hit gets hit for a certain amount, and his friends get hit for loads as well. It increases our spell penetration, basically. Any enemy we hit, we ignore 10% of their resistances. straight out. So if we go from start to finish, if that has 18.2k resist, which most enemies do, we are ignoring 1.8k of it. Quite nice. This increases on the base, whatever that may be, our status chance. So concussion for us is improved by 100% more than what it is on its base. So that means not only is this 100%, because it always is anyway, this particular skill, whatever else we use lightning wise is improved further by what it would be normally, by what it starts at. So that helps for a more off balance. This increases all of our area of effect damage by 8% as long as we have a Destro skill slotted and as long as we're holding that particular staff. We are holding a lightning staff, we must have a destruction staff skill on. This is our destruction staff skill for our front bar. This is our back bar one, although this does count as well. Everything we do is AoE apart from the Jesus Beam and the Vampire's Bane. So this here, and this here, which is really important, is all area of effect. The ultimate is area of effect, and also destructive clench, although it's a single target hit and dot, the splash damage from it is area of effect. Also our heavy attack splash damage is area of effect. So you can see where I'm going with that. It's all stacking. Finally, if you kill something with your Destro staff, you will gain 3600 Magicka back for the privilege. So if you kill someone with a light attack, a heavy attack, destructive clench, wall of elements, or a Destro ulti, you will gain back Magicka. More passives, what have we got? Light armor, very, very important. I'm not going to go over these too much because they're pretty much set in stone. You need to make sure you get all of these passives. They increase your penetration. This one I will touch on. Almost 5k spell penetration. This is very important alongside your 10% for the Destro passives. This almost hits you around 5.5k, or sorry, 6.5k penetration before you even start. That's without sharpen, that's without CPs, without any of that kind of stuff. Really, really, really important. Increases spell crit, increases your resistances, increases your, reduces your reduction to cost, and of course increases your recovery. You can look through them properly in your own time if you want, but those are essential to our sustain and our damage. This isn't 100% essential, but they are important skills. This one here, and this one here, if you're wearing a medium piece of armor. Now there is an alternative option that you can follow in order to get these bonuses, but if you're not using that version, then you don't need them. But these are tiny bonuses to your recovery and dodge roll reduction and all that kind of stuff for stamina if you want them, but they're not 100% essential. They just help you push tiny percentages where you wouldn't elsewhere have them. This is important, however. These two, not so much. They do boost your resistances and your resources back a tiny amount, but this gives you 2% max health for wearing a heavy piece of armor. We are wearing a heavy piece of armor alongside of our light armor. Vampire. We are a vampire, of course. This is very, very important, and this helps us sustain because we get 10% max Magicka recovery and stamina recovery. And we also reduce the amount of damage we receive by up to 33% while under 50% health. So the lower your health, the less damage you actually take. Really, really powerful. I would strongly advise anyone goes Vampire stage 3 or 4 in any situation because this is ridiculously strong. You don't have to, of course, but your recovery will drop and your survivability will drop. Fire damage, by the way, is obviously a problem if you're a vampire. It is 25% stronger against you. However, most fire in the game is either aimed at you, which means you can dodge it or block it, or it's aimed at the floor, which means you can step out of it. Use your brain, don't stay in fire, and it won't be a problem. Fighter's Guild, of course, we are using Rearm and Trap, which is from the skill line. So you are going to need Intimidating Presence to reduce the cost of the cast of this ability. Otherwise, you're just going to run out of juice too quickly. Banish the Wicked, you are going to need this. If you kill an enemy that is Daedra, Undead, or Werewolf, you will get 9 ultimate back. Get this as soon as possible. Mage's Guild, this one's the important one. You need, well, you can buy all of these, in fact, if you want, but the main one you need is this. This increases your max magic and your recovery by 2% per Mage's Guild ability slotted, which is why we slot this and this. That's 2, so it's 4% across the board. This one is 1, so we get 2% on the back bar, but don't stay on there too long. That's part of the rotation. but don't deliberately just sit there forever doing heavy attacks. There's 2 in the rotation, no more than that. Undaunted, finally, or not quite, there's 1 more. This you need. If you take a synergy, you get back resources. Take the synergies, they are essential to damage, sustain, and of course protection if you're using bone shield and all those types of things. Make sure you take those synergies. This increases your max health, stamina, and magic by 4% at the moment. It's 2% per type of armor. I'm wearing light and heavy. That's 2 types, so 4%. If I'm wearing medium as well, that's 3 types, and the resources will be 6%. But I'll show you that in a moment. This one, buy this in case you're doing trials. You're going to need it for Sanctum Ophidia. Your raid leaders will probably explain that to you, but you're going to need it. And of course, we are a high elf, meaning we get 9% max recovery, 10% max magic, and we do more flame, frost, and shock damage by 4%. Now this is the final one, medicinal use. This guy is maxed out to actually craft potions as well, but you don't have to do that. What you need to do is get a few skill points, max this out. There is a link in the description for this. I have an alchemy guide on my channel. You can max this out to get this unlocked. Then you can dump all your skill points and just spend 3 in here to just have this passive alone. Meaning crafted potions, and we are using them, last their entire cooldown plus 2 more seconds. I'll show you how that works just here. The potions I'm using are spell power pots. This is major sorcery, increasing our spell damage by 20%. Major prophecy, increasing our crit, which obviously we have on already, so don't worry too much about that, but it's nice to have it passively in case you want to change anything out. Also grants you major intellect, increasing your Magicka recovery by 20% for 47 seconds. It does give you Magicka back as well for using it, but this lasts 2 seconds longer than the cooldown. As you can see, it's 45 seconds. So that means that if you've got enough of these, you can keep these buffs up 100% of the time. That passive is very, very important. Without it, those potions don't do that. They last about 36, 37 seconds. So your DPS will drop, and so will your recovery. Okay, now I'm going to get into the gear. Okay, we're using 5-piece War Maiden, which is spell crit, max magic, spell damage, and increases our magic damage abilities by almost 400 spell damage. That's different if it's golded. It actually hits 400, but I don't have everything golded. If you're using the previous setup, don't panic. There is an alternative for that, and I would recommend changing out a couple pieces, but I'm going to explain that as I go along. Now, I'll sharpen lightning staff on the front bar with a weapon of spell damage glyph. Then I'm also using 5-piece overwhelming as well, which is max magic, spell damage, and when you activate a class ability, you have a 15% chance to surround yourself with a torrent that deals 2.3 shock damage to the closest enemy within 12 meters every second for 6 seconds. The lightning damage that this deals also contributes to our off balance from our wall of elements, from our destructive touch, from our light and heavy attacks. It all stacks together. So 5 overwhelming, 5 War Maidens. Now these can be in any order you like. It's not really that important as long as you get the pieces you need. So you can mix the jewelry up, you can mix the armor up. It's all light anyway. Go all divines on everything if you can, but make sure that War Maiden is the staff that you're using on the front bar, because if you switch to the back bar, you're going to miss out on the proc. We're also using 1-piece Alambris. Now this is a heavy piece to get the extra bonus to Undaunted, and it gives us a max magic for using it. Now, this particular set, the War Maidens, is pushing our magic damage, and Overwhelming is doing shock damage. But you have to use a class ability to activate it. So let's hit him a couple times so we can get this to proc. There you go. Watch. Zap, 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 repeatedly. For 6 whole seconds, with a 6-second cooldown. Meaning that can, if you're lucky, be active 100% of the time. It probably won't be, it'll be a lot less than that, but it's quite common to proc it, especially since you're using your own class abilities more than anything else. Now, that's point 1. That's how you apply extra shock damage, that's how you apply extra DPS, and that's how you make it happen. But what you can also do to push off balance even more is you can actually go 2 Alambris pieces. What you would then do is go 5 Overwhelming, so I'd switch this to perhaps the belt. You can put an Overwhelming belt on instead. Then I'd replace this with Alambris. You can have a medium on for full Undaunted passives if you want. Then what this will do is something slightly different. Where's a medium? I must have a medium on me. I do. Good. So switch this out. for an overwhelming. Yes, I know it's a bad trait. Now this time, if you do lightning damage, Alambris, if you're not familiar with it, can do 1.5k a second for 4 seconds. 5 seconds, sorry, within 4 meter radius. 10% chance to do so. We've got a lot of lightning going on. This is gonna proc. And the status effect chance for this is very, very high. Also, if you do flame damage, it applies the same damage in the same area of effect, but flame proc instead. So you can have both lightning and flame on at the same time. Now, if you have fire damage going, there you go. There's your fire damage proc. Lightning's firing as well from the overwhelming. And now you have the lightning damage. They can both proc at the same time. The lightning is massive, massive off balancing alongside all these other lightning effects. And it's going to let me down because the skeleton's awkward. But this is what you do to push it anyway. You can see he's got the concussion effect around him. He's lightning. There you go. And again. If he's zapped, there you go. Concussion off balance. Now, stacking them is what's important. There you go. Above his head, he's off balance. He has the little blue symbol with the stars around it. Kind of like a Tweety Pie type thing. He's been hitting the head. That is how you push for that. You don't have to have this, however. What you'll notice while you're testing it, if you're testing it, is that having 2 Alambris and 4 War Maidens on your own will do the same damage as 1 Alambris with no procs and 5 War Maiden. The reason being is Alambris will push off balance, making your damage higher. But if you have 5 War Maidens, you don't have the extra off balance bonus, but inside a group situation you will have. And the extra 400 spell damage to your magic abilities will actually push you over what Alambris will give you. We only use Alambris in small group situations where you need the extra off balance bonuses. However, if you're comfortable with it and prefer to stick to it, then that's up to you. So your choices are basically 2 Alambris, 4 War Maiden and 5 Overwhelming, or 1 Alambris, 5 Overwhelming and 5 War Maiden. But I will put this all on the website so it makes more sense. It's a lot to explain, especially when you're being told out there that there's so many absolutes in the game. Like you must just hit a skeleton and that's it. That's bull. It doesn't work that way on everything. There are many, many ways to apply damage, and certain status effects just like this can be low on your own, or they could be high in a group, and that gives you a flat bonus to your damage with builds like this before you even apply any form of penetration or buffs. So take that into consideration, especially against the skeleton, because he's stubborn as hell about being off balance. He doesn't like it. So that is what we're using there. What else is also important is we're using a Maelstrom lightning staff on the back bar. Now this will mean that any light or heavy attacks inside your wall of elements or elemental blockade, this one here, will be stronger. And we do use 2 heavies on our back bar. I will get to rotation shortly. Spell damage glyphs on all the jewelry. You want to push that as high as you possibly can. CPs. Champion points are really, really important. 11 into Ironclad just to reduce some of those single target hits that are going to hit you. They will. 75 into Hardy, 75 into Elemental Defender. Don't put any more points than this in here because you will need to spend a full 25 points to get a 1% bonus. It's not worth it. 48 into Thick Skin, giving us 18% reduction to damage over time effects, which also stacks with these. So if you get hit with a poison dot, you're resisted by this much, and the damage over time will be resisted by this as well. 11 points into here to increase our healing received. That's included the stuff we do and what other people do to us as heals. But also to get this passive, meaning you take less damage while resurrecting. We res fast, we res people back with more health, we get a soul gem back for res, and you should be picking people up. You need that to lessen the incoming damage while you're doing so. 34 into Warlord to take to cost us less stamina when we break free. You will need that, 14% reduction. 75 points into our return of max Magicka when we actually do a heavy attack, and 75 points into recovery to give us another 14% max recovery. These are, again, same as before. Don't waste any extra points in here. It's going to cost you 25 points to get 1%. Don't waste your points. It's not worth it. 34 points into Tumbling. You will be dodge rolling. You're going to need to reduce the cost. and 2 points into block cost reduction, just because we haven't got any more points we can spend without hitting diminishing returns and getting no bonuses for it. So we'll get a flat 1% to something useful instead of 2 points into something useless. 37 into Elfborn, increasing our crit damage. 30 points into penetration, giving us almost 2.7k spell penetration, which I will put up on screen now, showing you what you are actually getting in certain situations. 56 into Elemental Expert, increasing all of our shock, magic, flame, frost, all that kind of damage. 11 points into Staff Expert, so we get an extra 7% to our lights and heavy attacks, which we do a lot. And Master at Arms, of course, because we get 5% extra bonus damage to our single target hits. We are doing a lot of single target hits. Our light attacks are single targets, we use one every single ability. Our Destructive Clench is a single target ability, like the initial hit of it. Vampire's Bane also is the initial hit of that is single target. So we want to boost that a little bit, push it over the edge. Not too much, but just enough to give us a little bit of a kick. And 75 points into Thaumaturge, of course, because this increases our damage over time effects by 23%, which is huge. And above all, we get the Exploiter passive, which improves all of our damage by 10%. If the target is off balance. I said at the beginning of the video, if the target is off balance, and that's what this build is all about, your damage will improve overall by 10%, but even without this, but again on top of it as well, your heavy attacks are improved by a further 70% for being for the target being off balance at the time. That's a passive that everybody gets. If you do a heavy attack and something's off balance, it's a lot stronger. This pushes that by a further 10% and everything else you're doing as well. Now, I'm going to go briefly through the rotation. It's not too complicated, but it's quite long. But basically, you want to make sure that everything is applied all the time. You want to make sure everything has a huge uptime. The Beast Trap, your Wall of Elements, and all the rest of it. Now, your Spear lasts 8 seconds. And, of course, Overwhelming proc straight away. Wall of Elements lasts 8 seconds. This you can probably fire off 3 or 4 times on the front bar before they run out. But you need to heavy attack as well. So how are you going to heavy attack? There you go. That's run out. That's rubbish. It's no good. So what we do is we put our 2 dots down and we heavy attack and apply damage. And then once we've done 2 heavies, we'll apply these again before we go to the front and do our front bar rotation. So the back one's quite slow. We fire the dots twice. The front one's quite fast. And I'll show you how this works. You start off with Destructive Clench, like this. Always light attack first. Then we do light puncturing sweeps 3 times. Then light attack Beast Trap, weapon swap, light attack Spear, light attack Wall of Elements, heavy attack, Vampire's Bane, heavy attack. Now these are going to run out, so Spear, light, Wall of Elements, swap again. Start from the beginning. Now I'm going to set it a bit quicker, and you're going to have to probably slow it down, but I'll do what I can. So, once you start the fight, we do it in this order. You can Destructive Clench straight away, but you Spear, light Vampire's Bane, light Wall, light Destructive, light 3 stabs. Light stab, light Beast Trap swap, light Spear, light Wall of Elements, heavy attack. Vampire's Bane, heavy attack again. Spear, light Wall, light Crush, light stab. 3 times. Beast Trap. Heavy. That. Heavy. Spear and Wall again. Destructive as soon as you land over onto the other bar, then 3 stabs with a light in between each one. Light, Beast Trap swap, Spear, light, Wall, heavy. Vampire's Bane, heavy again. Spear, Wall, you can see where I'm going with this. Now, to start with, your first 2 rotations. When you go to the back bar, you can actually Spear, Vampires, Wall, and swap. And get through a whole rotation on the back bar. And then your second one you put heavy attacks into. Generally you want to put the heavy attack rotation in all the time, but if you can speed up a rotation occasionally without a heavy, then so be it. But I would only recommend that if you are currently over 70% max Magicka. Otherwise, when you do a full rotation, you're going to struggle. So at the moment, I could get away with this. Let's use the other skeleton because he's almost dead. At the moment, I can get away with this one. So a beast trap, starred, no heavy attack. No, I'm not going to do a heavy attack. I'm 66%, so I'm good. Pushing it, but I'm good. Now you're going to see it drop really, really low now. So now you want to make sure that you're on your heavy attack rotation. You'll notice the orange numbers sometimes go really, really high. That's because of off balance. And then you start again. This one's always the same speed. But your back bar. Keep your heavies in. See, that will keep you up. And this is without Ellie Drain. Now if you have Ellie Drain, it's a lot easier to sustain, and you can do those little spammy ones a little bit more often. But when you throw your Death Royalty in, make sure you do this. Make sure that those two dots are down, but do it in a certain order. Spear first, light, Destro, light, wall, swap. Put the wall on last, because you want to make sure it lasts throughout the whole rotation. That was probably quite complicated, but you've got some variations there that you can mess with. Okay, hopefully that helped. It's a little confusing, especially with off balance, because a lot of people don't understand how it works. They just think you have to have a wall of elements down and that's it. It's not as simple as that. You want to push that extra concussion as much as possible, make them stack, make the off balance kick in, make your heavy attacks count, because they do make a massive difference to your sustain, and they do a stupid amount of damage if the target's off balance and if you crit it. If you don't, just for argument's sake, a skeleton DPS test. You're going to lose a lot of damage on that. They're not set in stone for every single build in the game. They don't work for every single build in the game. Sometimes you actually have to get stuck into an actual enemy and hit it. If you have low off balance on your own DPS test, say for example, for argument's sake, 40% uptime, your heavy attacks aren't at their full potential, neither is your damage. But if you have another test and you have 80% uptime, your heavy attacks did 70% extra during that time. That's a massive amount of damage on top of what you're already doing. So just consider that. It's based on proc chances and uptime. Now, if you're in a group, there is going to be more lightning damage. There is going to be people doing other things, other blocks and bashes and all those types of things that can push off balance as well. And you're going to have a massive uptime, especially if you're up against maybe another one of these or an easy sork alongside of you. Your uptime on off balance combined is going to be so high that you're going to peak your damage. You can't do that on a skeleton unless you basically get your friends in to help you. So I wouldn't slap a skeleton with this just to see what flat damage you get, although you will get decent damage regardless. Most I've been hitting out of this is between 33 and 35, off balance permitting. With 100% uptime on it or 90% uptime on it, who knows. Anyway, hopefully that helped. Hopefully that wasn't too boring. It is quite complicated to understand how it's applied damage-wise, but not too hard to do the rotation, hopefully. Now, I did mention there is other setups you can use. You can, instead of War Maiden, use 4 Infallible Ether and 5 Overwhelming alongside 2 Alambris if you want. Damage is very good, very close to this. Same amount of uptime on off balance, really nice. There's barely anything in it. Or you can use 5 Ether if you want to get the extra crit, but it's really not worth it. The extra crit in comparison with the extra spell damage on the War Maiden is lower overall. So if you're using 4 Ether, use 2 Alambris. If you're not, then you're fine. But again, I will put it all on the website. So hopefully that helped, hopefully it wasn't too boring, and hopefully you got something from that maybe you didn't know, or maybe you did, who knows. Once again, thank you all very much for watching. I fully appreciate your support. If you're not subscribed, please hit that button, it is free. Failing that, if you would like to support the channel outside of YouTube, there are some links in the description for Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, and of course the website xynodegaming.com. Once again, thank you all very much for watching, and bye bye.